So, I want you to picture something for a second. Let's say you're back in the 1980s.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah. And an academic from South India submits a PhD thesis to a university review panel.
Right.
And, normally the topic would be, I don't know, medieval poetry or like an analysis of local agricultural trends.
Sure, something very standard, very dry.
Exactly. But this wasn't that. It was this exhaustive, highly documented investigation into a man who, according to the official records, literally engineered his own biological immortality.
Wow.
Yeah. He achieved what they called a deathless body. And the wildest part of this whole story...
What's that?
The university panel, they reviewed his methodology, they checked all the historical sources, they examined the logic.
They approved it.
They approved the doctorate, they actually signed off on it.
I mean, it is just the absolute definition of an academic and philosophical paradigm shift. Because when you think of a university thesis, you immediately think of rigorous verification. You do not think of a literal manual for defeating human mortality.
Right. You don't expect academia to validate immortality.
Exactly. Yet, that is exactly the landscape we are navigating today in this deep dive. It creates this really profound friction between the mechanistic materialist view of Western science that we all grew up with.
Mm-hmm. The biological clock ticking down.
Yeah, and this highly documented energetic paradigm of Eastern mysticism.
And that friction, that is the core of our mission today, because usually when you hear the word yoga, your brain just defaults to this very specific, very comfortable suburban imagery.
Oh yeah, the expensive yoga pants.
Right, the expensive pants, the cork blocks, maybe some soft ambient acoustic playlists.
A room full of people just trying to sweat out the stress of a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, exactly, before they go grab a $12 green juice.
Which is entirely categorized as everyday wellness. It's treated as a way to decompress the nervous system, maybe fix a bad lower back.
Or just unplug from your screens for 60 minutes.
Right. It's a fitness routine with a side of mindfulness.
But then you step into the source material we are diving into today, and that whole cozy image is just completely shattered.
Shattered. It really is.
We aren't looking at a way to just feel, a bit more limber. We are looking at a deeply complex diagnostic and spiritual architecture that claims the ultimate historical mission of yoga is something absolutely startling.
The attainment of that deathless body.
The deathless body. Just let that phrase sit with you for a second,
It's heavy.
It is. So, okay, let's unpack this. We are exploring a really fascinating presentation today by a figure known as Osman, or the Blind Yogi.
Right, Osman.
And the mission of our deep dive is to take this ancient mystical goal of literally interdicting the biological countdown of death and explore how Osman is rigorously testing it, refining it, and basically adapting it for the 21st century.
And to really grasp the gravity of this, we have to look at how Osman presents himself right out of the gate.
Yeah, his whole profile is incredible.
It really is. Because when someone introduces topics like attaining a deathless body, or, when a speaker introduces themselves as a master-level energy healer with telepathic abilities.
Right, who specializes in terminal illnesses.
Exactly. The modern, highly educated, skeptical mind just immediately wants to put up defensive walls.
Oh, 100%. We are trained to look for the grift.
We are.
Yeah.
But Osman is incredibly grounded. And we should note here, he is known as the Blind Yogi because he has actually been permanently blind since May 2023.
Right, which is a really recent and significant detail.
It is. But because he had normal eyesight for most of his life prior to that date, he retains these incredibly vivid visual memories and sensory frames of reference.
So when you watch his videos or read his materials, he's describing environments and techniques with the exact precision of someone who can currently see.
Exactly. He translates that past visual knowledge seamlessly into his current teachings.
And he is an intense practitioner.
Oh, incredibly. He attained his first state of Samadhi by the age of 19.
19. That's just wild.
Yeah, and he sustains this mastery through a lifestyle that demands up to 18 hours of daily practice.
18 hours a day. That is not a hobby. That is a full biological commitment.
It is a complete structural overhaul of his life. And he specifically notes that his primary focus is critical care and terminal illnesses.
Right, which is incredibly heavy, serious work.
Where the stakes are quite literally life and death.
But before he even gets into the esoteric concepts, the energy fields or the deathless body, he lays down an absolute non-negotiable boundary.
The medical disclaimer.
Yes, the disclaimer. He states explicitly that his therapies are all natural and are absolutely not a replacement for medical treatment.
That is a vital piece of context that honestly colors everything else we're going to discuss today.
It really grounds the whole thing.
It does. He is telling you, the listener, and his thousands of students globally, that if you have an illness, a severe pathology, or an acute medical condition, you must consult with a qualified, licensed medical professional in your area.
He isn't asking anyone to abandon the scientific method.
No, not at all. Or Western medicine.
Right. He's not telling people, hey, throw away your chemotherapy prescriptions and just visualize a healing white light.
Exactly. He is drawing a hard line.
And I think for you listening, that grounds this whole conversation. It shows that Osman isn't rejecting modern medicine at all. He is seeking to complement it.
And this raises a really important question about how we view human biology. When someone respects the boundaries of modern medicine to that degree, their pursuit of something beyond it.
Like absolute longevity.
Right. It reads less like a delusion and more like an extreme biological ambition.
I like that phrasing, extreme biological ambition.
Yeah, because he is treating the human body as this infinitely complex system that requires both the emergency mechanic,
which is your Western surgeon or oncologist.
Exactly, and perhaps an entirely different kind of structural engineer, which is the advanced yogi.
The emergency mechanic versus the structural engineer. I love that analogy.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah. Western medicine comes in when the bridge is already collapsing. Osman is trying to figure out how to build a bridge whose atomic structure simply never rusts in the first place.
Precisely. And he operates his highly specialized remote healing methods on principles of quantum mechanics and quantum entanglement.
Wait, let's pause there. Quantum entanglement and healing.
Yeah, so through these principles, he's manipulating and transferring vital energy to those in need, facilitating these profound systemic recoveries. It's an extreme specialism.
Which is why he deals with those really critical care cases.
Right. But that brings us to his methodology. Why should we, or anyone, take this extraordinary claim about immortality seriously?
Because talk is cheap, right? Especially in the wellness space.
Very cheap. It comes down to how Osman is actually studying this. Far from just meditating in an isolated cave for his own benefit, he's been teaching yoga and meditation for 44 years.
4.5 decades of continuous, unbroken practice and instruction.
And crucially, he has built a living, breathing laboratory of thousands of students spread across more than 100 countries.
100 countries. I mean, that is a massive demographic spread.
It's huge.
That means he's dealing with different climates, different modern diets, different genetic backgrounds.
Different cultural stressors, everything.
I think the best way to understand this is to look at Osman as a modern software developer.
Okay, I like where this is going.
If you think of ancient yoga as this incredibly complex, somewhat disorganized legacy code base left behind by ancient masters.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Osman isn't just writing code in a vacuum and hoping it compiles. He has essentially launched a massive 44-year global beta test.
That analogy holds up really well. But we need to look at what the actual bugs are in this human code base that he's trying to patch.
Okay, what are the bugs?
From a biological standpoint, the bugs are oxidative stress, telomere shortening, metabolic waste buildup.
Things that just naturally happen over time.
Exactly. And the gradual failure of cellular repair mechanisms, which is what we call apoptosis or programmed cell death.
Basically, the system degrading.
Right. Modern science views these as inevitable features of the human software. Osman views them as fatal errors that can be debugged and completely overridden.
That is such a wild paradigm shift.
And he's using the feedback, the struggles, and the actual physical results from this massive, diverse student body to refine his protocols.
He's literally debugging ancient tech, and the ancient tech is vast, man.
It is incredibly vast.
He specifically lists out these distinct, complex branches of yoga that he's pulling from. We're talking pranayama, hatha, kundalini, karma, bhakti, and mantra yoga.
He didn't just pick one discipline.
No. The source notes he actively sought out masters in all these different, highly specialized fields, delving deeply into their individual mechanics to see what actually works.
And that synthesis is incredibly difficult because historically, a practitioner might dedicate their entire life to just one of those branches.
Just one.
Yeah, and even then, barely scratch the surface of its potential. Take pranayama, for example.
Okay, let's look at pranayama, because in the West, we just call it breath work, right? Like, just take a deep breath.
Right, but structurally, pranayama is the rigorous mechanical manipulation of the respiratory system.
Not just breathing to relax.
No, it's used to intentionally downregulate the sympathetic nervous system. It alters the oxygen and carbon dioxide ratios in the blood to theoretically slow cellular oxidation.
Wow, so it's not just, taking a deep breath to calm down before a meeting. It's essentially biohacking your autonomic nervous system so your cells stop burning themselves out.
Exactly. It's pure mechanics.
Yeah.
And if we look at cross-platform synthesis, this echoes a lot of what figures like Swami Sivananda talked about in his classical Yoga Vedanta synthesis.
Oh, interesting.
Sivananda viewed pranayama not just as breath control, but as the direct manipulation of prana, the vital life force.
Mm.
And then you have hatha.
Right, hatha yoga, which
Okay.
people usually associate with the stretching.
Precisely. Hatha is the physical mastery of the body. It creates the structural durability required to house massive amounts of energetic load.
So you're building a stronger container.
Exactly. And then Kundalini deals with tapping into latent, highly concentrated energy reserves at the base of the spine and routing them through the central nervous system.
Which sounds intense.
It is. Then karma is the yoga of action and intention. Bhakti is the technology of devotion and emotional regulation. And mantra is the exact science of sound and vibration.
Okay, let's pause on mantra for a second, because people hear the word mantra and they think of like repeating a positive affirmation in the mirror.
Like, I am strong, I am confident.
Exactly. But biologically, how does chanting a sound relate to longevity?
It's a really great distinction to make. In this classical yogic framework, mantra isn't psychological at all. It is strictly mechanical.
Mechanical. How so?
It is the use of specific acoustic frequencies to stimulate the vagus nerve.
Oh, the vagus nerve. That's a huge topic in modern wellness right now.
It is, and the vagus nerve wanders from the brainstem down through the chest and abdomen. So by creating specific resonant frequencies in the vocal cords and the chest cavity, you are physically massaging that nerve.
Just with sound vibration.
Right, which drops the body into a state of profound parasympathetic repair. It interdicts the stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline that literally degrade our DNA over time.
That is fascinating. It reminds me a bit of Tony Robbins, actually.
Oh, the state changes.
Yeah. Robbins talks constantly about neuroassociative conditioning and massive physiological state changes, using your body and voice to instantly alter your biochemistry.
It's a very similar principle. Energy management and physiological state control. Deepak Chopra touches on this too, with his concepts of quantum healing and mind-body medicine.
Right, consciousness-driven biology.
Exactly. The idea that your conscious mechanical inputs physically alter your cellular reality.
So Osman's mission is to extract the functional core of all this, the vagal nerve stimulation, the oxygen regulation, the structural reinforcement.
And strip away the cultural fluff.
Yes. He wants to bring about what he calls a more practical protocol to, as he puts it, hasten or shorten the process for the 21st century.
Which is necessary.
Completely necessary. Because let's face it, you and I and the listener commuting to work right now, we don't have 50 years to sit cross-legged in a monastery to figure out if this stuff works.
And that is the true value of his 44-year beta test. By cross-referencing these techniques among thousands of students globally, he is forcing the practice to become highly scientific and repeatable.
If a specific breathing technique only works for, like, an ascetic monk living at a high altitude in the Himalayas on a diet of yak milk.
It's not a universal biological protocol.
No, it's highly specific to that environment.
Right. Osman is looking for the foundational code that works just as effectively for an accountant in Tokyo, or a public school teacher in Brazil, or an emergency room doctor in New York.
And here's where it gets really interesting, okay? Because if he is refining this protocol to this obsessive degree, what is the ultimate proof of concept?
Right, the end goal.
Yeah, because you don't spend 44 years beta testing a software system unless you have proof that the software can actually run the final ultimate program.
You need a successful case study.
Exactly. And this brings us back to that PhD thesis I mentioned at the start, the historical documentation that this has actually happened.
Yes. Osman doesn't rely purely on abstract philosophy here. He points directly to a specific historical case study of the deathless body being successfully attained.
A real person.
A real person. He brings up a South Indian figure named Valala, who is more widely referred to in historical texts as Ramalinga Swamigal.
Ramalinga Swamigal.
And according to the source, this figure lived relatively recently in the grand scheme of recorded history. We're talking from the late 1800s to the early 1900s.
So we aren't talking about a mythological figure from 5,000 years ago where the records are just, oral traditions translated 10 times over.
No, not at all.
We are talking about the era of the telegraph, the steam engine, and photography.
The modern era, essentially.
And Osman anchors his whole proof of concept on the academic validation of this man's life. He mentions that in the 1980s, a scholar from South India wrote a PhD thesis on this exact topic.
Which was later published as a book.
Yes, called Arut Param Jyothi and Deathless Body, which he notes you can literally go buy on Amazon right now.
And that is a critical structural pillar of his argument. A PhD thesis represents the highest level of institutional academic scrutiny.
It's not just a blog post.
No, to be awarded a doctorate, a scholar must present verifiable historical records, eyewitness testimonies from the era, and rigorous logical analysis.
Stuff that can withstand an adversarial critique.
Exactly, from a panel of expert academic peers.
But I have to push back here, though. I mean, my modern brain just rejects this premise.
I think everyone's does initially.
How does a modern academic write a PhD on someone achieving immortality? Look, if someone comes to a university today and says, I want to write my dissertation on a 19th century man who meditated so hard his cells stopped decaying and he became biologically immortal,
They'd be shown the door.
the university is going to laugh them out of the building. So what was actually in that thesis to make an academic institution sign off on it?
It's the perfect question, and it really speaks to the tension between historical record and biological assumption.
Okay.
Because the thesis wasn't just a collection of campfire stories. It heavily documented Ramalinga Swamigal's life, his physical transformations, and the specific protocols he practiced.
Based on what?
In academic terms, you have to follow the primary sources. If the primary sources from the 19th century, which included government records, thousands of followers, and written text by Swamigal himself, if they all meticulously describe a physiological transmutation.
What kind of transmutation?
Well, according to the records, his body allegedly stopped casting a shadow, stopped leaving a footprint, and eventually achieved a complete energetic sublimation.
Wait. Stopped casting a shadow.
According to the specific lore and the textual records analyzed in the thesis, yes.
That is wild.
The claim is that his cellular structure became so infused with vital energy or light that it lost its standard physical density.
I mean, that sounds like pure science fiction.
It does. Now, whether a modern scientist accepts that as literal physics or highly evolved metaphor is one thing. But the academic reality is that the institution signed off on a doctoral thesis examining those protocols, the historical impact, and the reality of this event exactly as it was recorded.
It really makes you wonder, how much history we just casually throw in the garbage because it doesn't fit our current scientific models.
A lot of it, probably.
Like if we don't have an equation for it today, we just label our ancestors as gullible or superstitious.
Right. But Osman is using this PhD thesis to tell his students, look, the blueprint exists. The house has been built before. We just need to reverse engineer the tools.
Reverse engineer immortality. It's a bold claim.
And the source makes a very important clarification right here. The thesis didn't just look at Ramalinga Swamigal as a one-off superhero.
No, it didn't.
No, it explores how other practitioners throughout history have reached what the source calls varying degrees of success along this same path.
What does that mean biologically? Like varying degrees of immortality? That almost sounds like an oxymoron.
It means that even if a practitioner didn't achieve the complete final stage of the deathless state,
The absolute cessation of biological decay.
right? Even if they didn't hit that absolute finish line, they still triggered massive physiological changes.
Yeah.
Maybe their cellular regeneration outpaced their decay for an extra 50 years.
Okay.
Or maybe their cognitive function remained incredibly sharp well past a century. It implies that the deathless body isn't just a simple on-off switch.
It's a spectrum.
Exactly. It's a spectrum of biological optimization.
Which kind of mirrors what Paramahansa Yogananda talked about in Autobiography of a Yogi, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yogananda introduced the West to Kriya Yoga science. And this whole idea of energy manipulation and metaphysical principles.
Right, showing that there are layers to this mastery. And that discussion of academic validation seamlessly bridges into what I think is honestly Osman's most compelling philosophical point in the entire source material.
The convergence of the two disciplines.
Yes, the idea that the extreme, seemingly mystical goal of yoga and the everyday pragmatic goal of modern science are actually running on the exact same track.
They are essentially distinct dialects of the exact same biological ambition.
I love that. And this part absolutely blew my mind because he uses hard, modern statistics to make this point.
The lifespan data.
Yeah. He points out that up until the year 1900, more than 50% of the human population died before the age of 30.
50%.
50%. Think about that. Throughout almost all of human history, if you made it to 31, you had outlived half the people born your year.
It's a staggering statistic.
And today, the average lifespan in developed nations is sitting somewhere between, 78 and 81?
Which is an absolute triumph of the scientific method. I mean, modern science has spent the last century developing antibiotics, surgical interventions, sanitation infrastructure, nutritional standards.
We basically declared war on the environment.
Exactly. We declared war on the external forces that kill the human body, bacteria, viruses, exposure, and as a result, we have more than doubled the human lifespan in essentially 3 generations.
And Osman leans right into this. He mentions how centenarians, people living to be 100 years old, are becoming more and more common.
They are the fastest growing demographic group.
Right. And he brings up the widespread studies of blue zones.
Oh, the blue zones are fascinating.
Yeah, for those listening who might not know, blue zones are those specific, highly studied regions around the world, like Okinawa in Japan or Sardinia in Italy, where demographic data shows people live significantly longer, healthier lives than the global average.
And science is actively studying them. Their diets, their social structures, their environment, trying to figure out how to push the baseline human lifespan to 100.
And crucially, modern science isn't just focused on adding years to the clock, right?
No, it is heavily focused on the quality of life, so that people aren't, as Osman puts it, decrepit or crippled.
Yeah, nobody just wants to lie in a bed for 40 years.
Right. The goal of modern gerontology is to keep people independent and vital right up until the end.
Which raises an incredibly important question. If Western science has already doubled our lifespan in a single century, what is the actual hard biological limit?
Who says 100 is the cap?
Exactly. Who says 120 is the cap?
Modern science is currently focused on optimizing the physical vessel from the outside in. Yoga, according to Osman, is simply taking that exact same scientific trajectory.
That exact same goal of defeating death.
Yes, but driving it from the inside out, taking it to its absolute infinite conclusion.
Okay, I want to try an analogy here to see if it tracks.
Go for it.
It's like modern science is focused entirely on building a better, stronger suit of armor for you.
Okay.
Better antibiotics to fight off invading bugs, better surgical techniques to patch trauma, better water filtration systems, basically protecting the soft biological body from the harsh outside world.
The armor.
Right. But yoga, in Osman's framework, isn't worried about the armor. It's like opening up the chest cavity and upgrading the internal engine itself so that it fundamentally never wears out.
It's a good starting point, the armor versus the engine. But we have to complicate that analogy just a bit to truly capture the mechanics of what Osman is claiming.
Okay, complicated.
Because even the most perfectly engineered engine eventually runs out of fuel, right?
Yeah, true.
The parts grind down from friction. Thermodynamics dictates that the system will eventually lose heat and just stop.
Right. Entropy always wins.
Exactly. But Osman's claim goes much further than just building a durable engine. He's suggesting that through these specific yogic protocols, the human engine can actually alter its fundamental fuel source.
Wait, explain that. What do you mean alter its fuel source?
Okay, so in Western biology, our cells run on ATP adenosine triphosphate.
Right, the energy currency of the cell.
Exactly. And ATP is created by our mitochondria, breaking down the food we eat and the oxygen we breathe.
Standard metabolism.
But it's a messy process. It creates metabolic exhaust or free radicals, which slowly damage our DNA over time.
Which is aging. That is the literal definition of aging.
Precisely. What Osman is proposing through practices like advanced pranayama and kundalini is that the body can be trained to synthesize and run on a much subtler, cleaner form of energy.
What yogis call prana.
Yes, prana. If the engine stops relying purely on a combustible fuel source that creates toxic exhaust, The wear and tear at the cellular level theoretically just stops.
Wow. So you aren't just slowing down the aging process, you are fundamentally changing the physics of how the cell survives.
You're swapping out the power grid.
That is wild. And moving from, abstract statistics about centenarians and cellular energy, Osman actually gives us living, breathing proof of what this upgraded engine looks like in reality.
The case studies.
Yeah, because it's one thing to talk about mitochondria and ATP. It's another to ask, what does extreme longevity actually look like when it's powered by these specific yoga protocols?
And to answer that, he dives into two incredibly specific, very vivid anecdotes about his own personal teachers.
And these case studies are vital, I think, because they force us to completely redefine our cultural expectations of old age.
They absolutely do.
Yeah, so the first teacher he mentions is a 95-year-old Kung Fu master.
And notice the discipline there. Kung Fu is a highly dynamic, explosive martial art.
It's not Tai Chi in the park.
No, it requires fast-twitch muscle fiber, incredible joint stability, and instantaneous neurological reflexes.
And this guy wasn't just a master name only, sitting on a mat giving instructions while his students did the work.
No, Osman explicitly says this 95-year-old man used to spar with three 30-year-olds simultaneously.
And he would floor all three of them at the same time.
Which is a biological marvel.
Look, I have to push back on this purely from a biomechanical standpoint. A 95-year-old physically dominating three people in their physical prime. How?
Sounds impossible.
It does. At 95, your fast-twitch muscle fibers have typically degraded. Your joints lack synovial fluid. How does Osman explain the actual mechanics of a 95-year-old moving with enough velocity and force to drop three 30-year-olds?
It's the perfect skeptical response. Because if you view the body purely through the lens of materialist biology, it simply shouldn't be possible.
The bones should be too brittle.
Right, the reaction time should be too slow. But this is where Osman's energetic paradigm comes into play.
To prana.
Yes. In this framework, the Kung Fu master isn't relying on the gross muscular skeletal system, the physical meat and bone, in the same way a 30-year-old does.
Okay, so what is he relying on?
Through decades of practice, the master has built an incredibly dense, highly regulated bioenergetic field. The physical body is basically suspended within and animated by this intense energetic framework.
So the energy is doing the heavy lifting, not the 95-year-old cartilage.
Essentially, yes. The nervous system is so profoundly optimized that the electrical signals commanding the muscles fire with zero resistance.
That is mind-blowing.
And it completely shatters the archetype of the frail, ascetic monk meditating in a cave. This was man fully engaged in the physical dynamic world.
And speaking of fully engaged in the dynamic world, the detail I love the most about this 95-year-old, because it is just so humanizing and non-monastic, is that Osman notes his wife was 50 years younger than him.
I love that detail. It proves that this protocol isn't about withdrawing from life.
Yeah.
It's about participating in it with supreme vitality. It underscores a crucial distinction in the modern science of longevity, which is the profound difference between lifespan and health span.
Right. Lifespan is just a metric of how many years the clock ticks before you die. You could spend the last 20 years of your lifespan bedridden, attached to machines.
Which a lot of people do, sadly.
Yeah. But health span is how many of those years you are actually alive, capable, cognitive, and independent.
Precisely. This master didn't just survive to 95, he thrived. He was a dominant physical force.
And the second example Osman provides pushes the boundary even further into the extraordinary.
The 112-year-old yoga master.
Yeah. Think about the physical state of a typical 112-year-old today, if you can even find one.
They're usually incredibly fragile.
But Osman says this specific teacher was remarkably fit. He was playing football with children.
Running around.
He was running around, and this is the detail that gets me. He was climbing trees.
Climbing tree.
Climbing trees at 112.
Again, we have to look at the biomechanics of climbing a tree. It requires immense grip strength, core stability, and the ability to pull one's own body weight against gravity.
It's hard enough at 30.
Exactly. For a 112-year-old structure to withstand 112 years of constant gravitational pull and still maintain the cartilage and bone density required to scale a tree.
It's unheard of.
It is a testament to an internal regeneration process that is vastly outpacing the natural decay process.
It's proof of the engine generating its own pure fuel.
Exactly.
But, the detail about this 112-year-old master that is truly staggering isn't how he lived.
It's how he died.
Yes. It's how his life ended. The end-of-life experience for this master is perhaps the most profound concept Osman shares in the entire source.
It fundamentally challenges our entire relationship with mortality.
It really does. Osman notes that the master didn't die of a sickness.
There was no prolonged decay.
No, he didn't lose his mind to dementia or his body to a terminal disease. He just passed away peacefully in his sleep.
But it wasn't just randomly passing away in his sleep.
Right. Osman describes it as if the master actively used the opportunity of a window. He seemingly chose to die at his own discretion.
Which is an incredible concept.
Osman says the master felt his work here was completed and he consciously wanted to ascend to a higher level of existence.
And that concept, choosing the exact moment of one's exit, it completely upends our modern Western relationship with death.
100%. Because for most of the world, death is something that happens to us.
Right. It is an aggressive biological failure, an invading disease, or a tragic accident.
It is an ultimate loss of control.
But in the highly advanced yogic framework Osman is describing, death ceases to be an ambush.
It becomes a conscious transition.
Exactly. It can be deliberately initiated when the physical vessel is no longer required for the practitioner's evolution.
So, what does this all mean for you and me? I mean, it makes you completely reevaluate the fear of aging.
It should.
Because aging in our society is synonymous with terror. It means losing your keys, losing your mobility, losing your dignity.
It's viewed as a tragedy.
But if a 112-year-old can climb trees and literally choose his moment of exit like he's just checking out of a hotel...
Are our current expectations of biological decline just completely wrong?
Right. Have we just accepted that getting old means falling apart because we haven't been given the right biological protocol?
It strongly suggests that our biological expectations are heavily culturally conditioned rather than scientifically absolute.
We just observe decline everywhere around us, so we accept it as an inevitable law.
But Osman's teachers represent a biological counter-narrative. They are the undeniable data points proving that profound vitality at an extreme age isn't just a myth.
It is an achievable, observable reality. But this naturally leads to the biggest question. If these masters achieve such incredible vitality, and if the blueprint exists in 19th century PhD theses, where does that leave Osman and his thousands of students today?
Right. What is the current status?
We have to transition here to the current state of Osman's 50-year project, and this is where his groundedness, that clinical realism we talked about at the beginning, comes back in full force.
Yes, because despite the profound goals, the historical precedents, and the incredible case studies of his own teachers,
Osman is strikingly transparent about his own current status.
very transparent. He doesn't claim to be immortal.
No, he admits, plainly and publicly, that he has not yet produced the final, ultimate result of the deathless body in himself nor in his students.
He says it right out. I still yet to produce that final result.
He isn't hiding behind fake mysticism, but he calls it a serious work in progress.
Which is a very scientific way to frame it.
It is. He explains that the biggest job wasn't necessarily practicing the yoga, it was just finding the authentic plan in the first place.
Which took him close to 5 decades of searching through the noise and the corrupted texts.
Yeah. And now he believes he has finally refined the protocol, he's debugged the system, and they are putting it into daily practice and essentially waiting for the final results.
And this transparency highlights the immense, almost incomprehensible patience and dedication required for this kind of internal science.
Decades of patience.
He states that it takes time for the results to materialize. Because when you are dealing with the fundamental alteration of human biology, cellular regeneration, and energetic capacity,
You are not operating on a timeline of days or weeks.
no, you are operating on a timeline of decades.
I have to push back on this, though, thinking about the modern listener. Because we live in a world of absolute instant gratification.
Oh, absolutely.
We want the 30-day fitness challenge. We want the 10-day detox juice cleanse. We want overnight success and Amazon Prime delivery on our spiritual enlightenment.
Everything has to be immediate.
Right. So how do you mentally, psychologically commit to a protocol that takes 50 years just to refine the instructions, let alone see the final ultimate result?
It's tough.
It requires a level of faith and stamina that feels almost incompatible with modern psychology.
It is a very real psychological hurdle. But I think it raises a deeper point about the intrinsic value of the journey itself.
Okay, what do you mean?
Let's do a thought experiment. Let's say you commit to Osman's protocol. You practice the pranayama, you regulate your nervous system, you do the work.
Right.
And let's say the ultimate goal of absolute biological immortality remains a work in progress during your entire lifetime. You don't become immortal.
Okay, so you fail the ultimate goal.
Right. But the side effects of merely striving for that goal, as demonstrated by his teachers, are still extraordinary.
Oh, I see.
You achieve massive vitality, an immensely prolonged health span, and a profound, unshakable sense of internal peace.
So even if you don't hit the deathless body, you might hit 100 while still being able to climb trees, spar with 30-year-olds, and maintain complete cognitive clarity.
Exactly. That is a pretty incredible consolation prize, right?
I'd take that consolation prize any day.
Right. The daily application of the protocol yields compounding interest in the form of biological optimization. By engaging in the practice, you are actively optimizing your nervous system every single day.
You are expanding your respiratory capacity.
You're regulating your heart rate variability through pranayama. You are reinforcing your physical structure through hatha. You are sharpening your energetic focus.
The end goal might be immortality, but the immediate daily byproduct is an exceptionally high quality of life that basically renders the modern fears of aging completely obsolete.
It's a win-win.
That is a powerful way to frame it. The pursuit of perfection creates excellence as a byproduct.
Exactly.
Wow. Let's briefly recap this incredible journey we've been on today.
It's been a lot of ground to cover.
It really has. We started by looking at how the typical, comfortable Western view of yoga is just a tiny, sanitized fraction of its true, documented history.
We explore the incredible case of Ramalinga Swamigal, the 1980s academic PhD thesis validating his attainment of the deathless body.
And how that friction between academia and mysticism forces us to rethink what is possible.
Then we examined Osman's 44-year global experiment. We analyzed how he is taking these massive, complex branches of ancient yoga pranayama, hatha, kundalini, mantra, and synthesizing them into a modern, rigorously testable protocol for extreme longevity.
And we've seen how this seemingly mystical pursuit is actually running parallel to the hard scientific goals of modern medicine.
Both are trying to defeat death and extend the human health span.
Science is doing it from the outside in with antibiotics and surgeries. Yoga is doing it from the inside out by fundamentally upgrading the cellular engine.
Changing the fuel source.
Exactly. And we've seen the living proof of that engine in Osman's teachers, who maintained elite physical and cognitive capabilities well past 90 and 110 years of age.
Ultimately choosing the moment of their own exit.
It completely reframes the narrative of human life from one of inevitable biological victimhood to one of ultimate energetic agency.
It really does.
So I want to ask you, the listener, directly. How does hearing all this detail, all these mechanics, shift your perspective on your own body?
It's a big question.
When you look in the mirror tomorrow morning, does aging still feel like this inevitable, depressing, terrifying decay? Or, as Osman suggests, does it start to look like a solvable scientific problem?
An engineering issue that just requires the right internal software update.
Exactly, because once you view the body as a programmable energetic system, the limitations we place on ourselves start to look like choices rather than laws.
Yeah, it's a profound realization.
I want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to ponder long after this audio stops. We know for a fact that human life expectancy has already doubled in just over a single century.
True.
And that was achieved entirely through the external interventions of modern science. Cleaning the water, developing pills, patching the armor. What might happen in the next century if we finally master the internal technologies of our own energy?
The sky's the limit.
Could the deathless body eventually transition from a fascinating spiritual myth locked in 19th century texts to a standard biological reality?
It's entirely possible.
Just imagine what the world looks like when the precise external X-ray machine of modern medicine finally perfectly aligns with the infinite internal potential of the human engine.